Slept on Cinema is sponsored by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know someone who's struggling with shoe tying for any reason, Training Ties is the perfect solution.
I went from bored to confused to occasionally intrigued, but never entertained or scared.
90 minutes of an angry protester screaming in your ear.
Quite possibly the most offensive remake in the past decade.
Some films wrap their messaging up in a pretty package, whereas Black Christmas is a gift lit on fire and thrown through your window.
It's hard to fault the film's intentions, but it's also hard to actually sit through it.
The entire finished product feels like it was just rushed out into theaters as quick as possible.
Welcome to this week's episode of Slept on Cinema. I'm your host, Stan Steamer.
I'm Grove Street.
And this week we're getting into the 2019 version of Black Christmas. As always, the criteria for our podcast is that we only talk about movies that are below 50% on Rotten Tomatoes for both critics and audiences. And we structure the podcast such that the first half is spoiler-free, talk about some things to look for in the film, take a break, go watch the movie, come back, and talk about what we just experienced.
Rotten premise. Hawthorne College is quieting down for the holidays as students travel home to spend time with their families. But as Riley and her sorority sisters prepare to deck the halls with seasonal parties, a mysterious cloaked figure starts to leave a bloody trail throughout the campus. Refusing to become hapless victims, Riley and her friends decide to band together and fight back against a psychotic Christmas killer. Critics, 39%. Audience, slightly lower at 31%.
That is shockingly low for the audience.
This keeps happening to us, I guess.
It does.
Some of these, it just doesn't make sense that the audience isn't enjoying this as much as the highbrow critics are.
And I guess I get it. This film's probably not for everyone. And I don't think it was designed to be. But we can get into that. We can get into that later. But it's still...
I think there's about 50% of the population that suppose that this wasn't exactly meant for.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but that's fine. It's a great movie. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. But you can tell some of the 50% that are offended by some of the reviews we had. One of them, when I read, 90 minutes of an angry protester screaming in your ear. I think you know what's up.
Right. It's like, are you watching the same movie that I just watched? Yeah, a little bit of background here. This is our first remake, I think. Right?
Is it really? Wow.
I think so. It's a movie, and the original came out, and then there's a remake, and then this is another remake, and yet this also has almost nothing to do with the original or the original remake.
Very, very little. Yep.
But the same name, I suppose, and some of the basic premise or the basic setup of the film. But so it came out December 13th, 2019. Opening weekend, only 4.2 million. And it came in fifth, which is probably much lower than most of the movies that we've done here. A tough weekend, a challenging weekend to come out, as it usually is around the sort of pre-Christmas movie. There's usually a lot of movies coming out then that are kind of blockbuster style movies. Number one was Jumanji: The Next Level, which came out that same week, and those new Jumanji movies, those movies are awesome. I don't know if you've seen those, but both of those movies are fantastic.
I think that's on my list of waiting till my son grows up a little bit, and then we'll watch those together.
I was shocked at how entertaining those movies are. So I totally understand that coming in first.
And anything Jumanji is going to do well. It's not a remake, but it is a sequel, right? So
right,
it's going to.
And this was the sequel to the original remake. For the Jumanji. So a lot of sequels going on. Number two, Frozen 2, another sequel. So really high on sequels in 2019. Number three, Knives Out, great movie. Number four, I didn't see this. Richard Jewell also came out that same weekend. So obviously there's a lot of sort of hype behind that. Was that Clint Eastwood directing that?
I have no idea.
Whatever it was, I remember lots of ads for that one. And then Black Christmas. So it's tough to come out with a number of movies also coming out that weekend that have a lot more money behind them.
Yeah, I think the Friday the 13th remake was right around that time too.
Oh, it might have been. Yeah. Uncut Gems also came out that same weekend, which is a great movie. I remember seeing that in the theater right around when this was. But ultimately, it made $18.5 million on a $5 million budget. So I think while this film was viewed as sort of not being a success, it still almost made 4 times what it cost. So you can't argue with the 4X. You can't. And that's really, I think this is also the first Blumhouse movie that we've done. So Blumhouse, it's been around since 2000, started by Jason Blum. Most of our listeners have probably heard of Blumhouse. Their whole basic premise is to make movies that, for the most part, cost less than $5 million. Typically horror movies. And they're sort of these low budget, but they give the directors a tremendous amount of creative freedom. The director gets final cut of the film. They don't do these cutting things down for the audience, cutting things down because of test audiences didn't go well. They give them the creative freedom to make the movie they want to make, and you end up with these really interesting viewpoints in the films. He also structures the payoffs so that people get less money up front, but a higher percentage of the profits on the back end of the movie, so that they do get people who are top-notch talent to make these films, knowing that if their work ends up being successful, they'll get paid off on the back end. They can sort of stand behind their work in that way.
So cool. I feel like there's so much more Blumhouse. Like it was initially a few trickling out, but now it feels like there's every other movie I watch, the Blumhouse pre-movie credits or whatever roll up, and I'm like, okay, it's another one of those.
Yeah, and I kind of thought the same thing, and I didn't realize, so I went to go look at just what the list was, because I was kind of like, I feel like I've seen a lot of these. The movies they've done are just amazing. Like this movie, Black Christmas, probably isn't even in the top half of my favorite movies from Blumhouse, and this movie's awesome.
Yeah.
So they did the Purge movies, the Insidious movies, Paranormal Activity, the Ouija movies, Get Out, Us, Happy Death Day, which I thought had a lot of similar feel to this, which was also a phenomenal
Death Day 2, also good.
Yep. Black Phone, all the new Halloween movies. Wow. And then also Whiplash, which was nominated for an Academy Award. So an unbelievable string of movies. This made me realize once I looked at the full list that I think I just need to see every single Blumhouse movie. I've liked every single one I've seen has been fantastic. So I just there's only a couple left that I need to check off, I need to see those.
It's cool what he did, because it did kind of movies have kind of turned where it's sort of like, Marvel or independent, and there's not a lot of wiggle room for sort of like the horror movies that we grew up on with $5 million budget. It just kind of gets released a couple times a year, and it could go any crazy direction. It's not, but this isn't like some high level, high money, big budget horror movie, and that's what makes these cool. Is you can just sort of like pump them out, get creative with the story. Like you said, let the director do their thing. And now because of it, we get all these like cool horror movies that just slowly drip out throughout the year that fill up our, I think a lot of them are on Shudder that I know you and I are a fan of.
And I don't know the specifics of this. I'm not going to waste people's time on this, but apparently the way movie deals typically work is that actors, directors do often get some interests in the back end profits of the film. But the way that most studios structure this is it's incredibly opaque structure, so that it's really hard to tell whether the movie was technically profitable and how much you actually do at the end. And at Blumhouse, they just apparently make that very, very simple. They just sort of add up what it costs, add up how much it makes, and directors and actors are really drawn to that, because they're like, okay, I actually know what I'm going to make if this film is a success. And that's some of the reasons they're able to get all this good, really, really high-end talent for these films without having to put a huge, massive financial outlay at the beginning.
Seems like a pretty clear incentive to make it work. That's better than when I was out of college. I sold Kias for 3 months, and we were told that if we sold it for a high price, we would get a percentage of how much over sticker or whatever it was, that we would get a piece of that money, which I never saw, nor did I ever push people to spend more money than they should. But it would be nice. It would have been nice to know what percentage you would make off of, or how much you would make off of doing well.
Right. Yeah. Maybe you would have worked a little harder to sell a few more Kias if you knew what was probably in your pocket.
Do you want to get to Bolos?
Let's do it.
All right, I'll go first here. Bolo, just in case you are like getting ready to get a blanket or a drink or whatever, and you toss in the movie a little early, just wait, and because there's an opening scene quote, so just, you don't want to miss it and go back. So Bolo and opening scene quote.
How do you feel about the opening scene quotes?
I can't get enough of it. I don't know if that's really obvious or not, but I absolutely love starting a movie with a screen with a quote that's supposed to be meaningful throughout. I absolutely love it. It's up there with spinning newspapers and other little tricks in movies. Or just tell me this is based on a true story. Awesome.
Yeah, I love the quotation too. There's something kind of old timey about it. It's almost like reminds me of how a silent film would start or something. But they're great.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting a version of like a proverb or something like very wise is being told to me, and I have to keep that in mind while watching the movie.
Yep, no, that's a great one. I'm going to go with Bolo Footprints.
Nice.
And this is one of my favorite things for this sort of genre of movie or movies taking place in the winter, especially with horror movies. The ability to use footprints is great.
Yeah, there was one scene where it's very clear that they spent a lot of work putting in the footprints in the snow. And it must be so frustrating if they mess up the take and they have to start that all over again.
Yep.
Put in the fresh footprints. That's good. Bolo, the name of the 4 sorority sisters.
I like that. I'm going to say Bolo Mistletoe.
Stole that one. That's good. Bolo, a pig joke.
I'm going to follow this up really right in line. Bolo, just an entire ham subplot.
Nice. Bolo, a snow angel.
Yep, had that one up next. That's a great scene.
Awesome. One of the better scenes we've had on this podcast.
I'm gonna go Bolo Mayo.
Bolo, PG-13 language choices. Sometimes you could tell they were going to go one way and they softened it a little bit.
Yep. There's definitely a lot of that here. Bolo holiday humor.
I'll add a little darker, but Bolo orphan humor.
Ooh, yep. And I'm going to go even darker here. Bolo black slime.
Oh, very good. Bolo calling a woman dude.
I'm running out of bolos here, but I'm going to go Bolo a comb.
Ah, yes, I have that one. I've got a few. Do you have any more left, or is that it?
My only other one was just Bolo decor. There's just some phenomenal holiday decor all throughout here.
Phenomenal decor in this. I'll fly through here. Bolo, I think the song is Up on the Rooftop remix. Bolo, a speech that was fake intended for a lot of people, but really meant for one person.
Mm-hmm.
Bolo, a dude walking way too close to a woman on her own. That'll come up again later on the other half. Bolo mixing vodka with tequila.
Doesn't turn out well.
Bolo, a list of names. And I'll finish with Bolo, just like in the beginning of the movie, to be ready, don't turn the movie off after the end of the movie. You might see a cat at the end.
Mm-hmm. You might.
I don't know.
All right. What are you thinking to pair with this?
I didn't get creative with this one. Obviously, the last episode I got very creative, but this one I think I just want, and maybe you know a recipe for this, but I haven't done it in a while. But just having like a boozy hot chocolate, like so hot chocolate and some marshmallows, and make it an Irish hot chocolate of however you want to, but just something nice, a warm, cozy drink that you can have by the fire and sip on throughout the movie.
I like that. I was at work this week getting a coffee, and someone next to me got a hot chocolate at 9 a.m. An adult. It's very, very confused by that.
I wonder how that works with with coffee. You have it at 8, 9 a.m, and then you maybe have another one at 11, 12, or if you're really risking it, you might have one at 2 or 3. Do you have more hot chocolates, or do you switch to?
I think when you're having a hot chocolate at 9 a.m., that's one of many hot chocolates that you're having throughout the day.
It's quite the commitment.
I'm also going on the sort of cozy, warm train here. I think that's exactly right. I'm going with a mulled wine.
Oh, good choice.
That's like a very holiday-esque drink, and while you make it, you put it on the stove, you throw wine, some brandy, some oranges, and then some spices in the stove. You might throw some clove, ginger, cinnamon. You really throw whatever you want, cardamom, throw whatever you happen to have lying around. But while it's simmering, you get those aromas that just fill your house with this just holiday cheer that's going to put you right in the right place to watch this film.
That's a great smell to get ready to watch a Christmas movie like this. Great choice. All right, I think you're going to have a lot of fun. Some say this is the best remake of Black Christmas. We'll see what you think.
I would say that.
I would say
I
that
am
too.
one of those people.
I am one of those people too. So enjoy. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, enjoy.
Helena hasn't gotten home yet.
If I were missing, I'd want you to unleash the bloodhounds and track me down.
She was at DKO last night.
Still creating problems, huh, Rye?
Hello? Hello? I'm worried that something bad happened.
It's winter break. Could just be a delay of some sort. Snow.
My friend is missing.
9 times out of 10, the girl's just with a boyfriend.
This can't be real.
This school has 200 years of history. Many sacrifices have been made to keep our traditions alive.
You're all insane. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of running. Go, 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 go!
Ho, 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 bitch. You messed with the wrong sisters.
Slept On Cinema is brought to you by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know anyone who's struggling with shoe tying, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Or if you know anyone who just doesn't like tying their shoes, Training Ties keeps shoes tied all day long. Say no to Velcro and yes to independence with Training Ties.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Awesome time.
And what an ending.
Such a great ending. Yep. It really went off the rails, but in a good way.
Yep.
I don't think we touched on this before, but did you know the original Black Christmas is the origin of the call is coming from inside the house?
Yeah, I remember watching that and being like, oh my God, that's where this came from.
Yep.
It's great. I do feel like the use of so much of the phones in this movie is a bit of an homage to that movie.
The DM is coming from inside the house.
Right.
This is slightly updated. And there's a lot of good choices here, but do you want to get right to the draft?
Let's do it.
All right, you got first pick.
All right, my first pick, and I don't even know if this is fair to pick this, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm just going with the whole Christmas horror movie genre. I love this genre. There's so many great films in it, and it's just such an opportunity to take something that people have childhood memories of and all these warm Santa, all these like happy memories, and just totally flip it on its head with something horrifying. It's just, there's so much to do, and so many great movies have taken advantage of that juxtaposition and opportunity of just very deep set memories people have of their childhoods and Christmas and family and all that. Once it gets close to Thanksgiving, I just want to fire up as many of these movies all the way through Christmas because they're great.
I don't think there's a better first pick than that. That's so good because it's at the point now my love of Christmas horror movies surpasses that of like Halloween scary movies. Like Halloween, it's like, I get it. Yeah, it's supposed to be a scary time, but I want like once Halloween ends, I always said a few years ago when the pandemic started, my wife and I started watching a horror movie like every single night. And then we did that for Christmas and just watched at least one horror movie every night. So we've seen pretty B-level. They're all pretty great. But this year, my wife's Canadian, American, and our Thanksgivings are off, but we kind of split it right in the middle. So we've already done we're recording this like the week before Thanksgiving. We've already had our Thanksgiving. So right when that happened, we started watching our Christmas horror movies. So we are already in the thick of it. Now we did Better Watch Out, which is really good. We've done a few more that don't qualify for the podcast, plus this a few times. And it's just, like you said, it's taking this childhood innocence of this magical time as a kid and feels so safe and wholesome. There's I think I'm aligned with you where I'm not sure there's a better genre of movie than Christmas horror movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's such a ripe area for just fantastic ideas that I'm sure this will continue forever. You can't overmine this genre.
No, and you get the awesome Christmas music that you can make little Ice Ice Baby, a little tinge there. You can make it horror Christmas songs, and you get a lot of cool weapon choices maybe, and other outside the box thinking that wouldn't be there in the rest of the year. Plus, you get the snow scenes, which is always
the
good.
snow. The snow, I think, is a huge part of it. You get footprints. You get not here, obviously, but the red blood on the white snow. Here, you get the black on the white snow. But that same idea, this like very high contrast, the sort of purity, the whiteness from that contrasted with something evil and bloody, and it's amazing.
Yeah, so good. Great choice. I'm going to go with I think maybe the second most obvious one after that. I'm going to take the dance at the frat house, the dance that they put on at the frat house.
Oh, yeah.
It was phenomenal. And they didn't let you clue you in as to what it was about. And Helena getting too drunk on purpose, not on purpose, probably on purpose, but not even she was letting on so that Riley could step in. And then she had that moment where she was kind of like, is she going to freeze? And then she and the rest of the girls absolutely crushed it. And then having that get recorded and sent around. But that is such a rewatchable scene when they were doing the up in the frat house.
Yep. It's also so good. I mean, that song was so well written. It was it was great. Yeah, that whole scene was great. It's also great when it comes back. The song comes back in the credits. Yep. Also great. That's a great pick. I mean, that the whole scene with everyone just flipping out in the frat house and yelling at them, and it was just awesome.
Yeah, they're getting hit with a paper plane and someone's screaming out "women!" Like it's such a great juxtaposition to both sides of the audience. I'm gonna pick it just because this probably should be a sleeper, but it bothers me. I'm gonna pick the proximity. I didn't like the proximity of which that bozo in the beginning opening scene was walking so closely behind. I think it was Lindsay. It's like, as a guy, probably because I'm a taller, bearded guy, I know I can be off-putting for people around me, especially, never mind like a college girl walking home at like midnight or 1 a.m. You can't be within like 4 steps of a girl who's on like, not even like in the city. You're just like in just a random side street and you're like 4 or 5 steps right behind her, just staring at like, of course she's going to think someone's going to murder her. So this really had nothing to do with the movie, but if you're a guy out there, give some girls some space so they don't freak out because you're right behind them.
Yeah, that's totally on you if you're in.
Absolutely.
Your personal space extends to a pretty significant range when you're the only people on a street. So you really got to back off and give everyone else some space.
You come up with a reason to stop, fake tie your shoe, give yourself some room, and then you just move it along so you're not scaring anybody else around. Even without her getting yip-yapped, it was already, I'm sure,
It was already totally creepy.
Situation.
Yeah.
So I'm picking that guy, and don't do that.
Yeah, something wrong with that guy. I am going to go with the main character. I mean, and the main actress, Imogen Poots.
Oh yeah, she was great.
She was so good. She played this role perfectly. She had a massive amount of range. I thought the role required her to do all. She had to get angry. She had to get vengeful. She had to be hurt. She had to be remorseful after that song. She's like, well, I thought I'd feel great, but now I actually don't. She had to really show a lot of different emotions, and she was so good. It made me look up all the different things she's in. She hasn't been in a ton of films, but it seems like maybe she's been kind of intentional about the film choices that she's done. But I thought she was just great. She
was, and she also had to pull off that like vulnerability of meeting somebody new and that awkwardness, and then she got in that fight with Chris where she's like, "You're not even listening to me," and I thought she crushed that scene.
Yep.
So I couldn't agree. She was really, really good, very captivating. I can't believe she's not like a household name.
Right.
That's
all right. My next pick, maybe this is a sleeper. I don't know, but it's been a while since I've been in college, and I appreciate when they cast older people as college students because it doesn't make me feel so old. Like I was this past weekend, I was up. We went to Williamstown in Massachusetts, where Williams College is, and there were obviously a lot of college students around. And I mean, this is what like old people say all the time, but like they looked so young. So if everyone in this movie looked like that, I'd be like, this is cast with like 12-year-olds. Like, what is this? So some of these actors and actresses were, late 20s, early 30s, but to me they looked like college students. And I appreciate that. That was nice. I mean, we did Urban Legend, and they cast the main guy who was like 25 at the time to play a high school student. So yeah, bump it up. Let's do a little Saved by the Bell, the new class, where everyone, 30-year-old Zach Morris. I can get behind that. Totally. I could tell they were thinking of us by doing that.
Absolutely. And when you're in college, you think everyone looks so like normally aged, and anyone who isn't in college or is older is very, very old.
Yeah, it's ancient.
Ancient. Everyone's just someone who's not in college anymore and is just an adult. But yeah,
Exactly.
looking back now, we have a bunch of colleges around here too, and they just look like kids that you're not even sure can drive yet.
Yes. It was shocking. I mean, I hadn't been in a college town in a long time, and I was blown away at the age of the students.
This makes us sound nice and young. All right, my third pick. I'm going to take... I like the ant metaphor because you can't kill one of them because they have a singular focus or a singular brain, and they work together so well. And as much as that applied to the girls, it absolutely applied to the guys who were part of that other fraternity and who were indoctrinated into that like black magic voodoo of the frat house, because you can't kill one of them. They're all part of the same sort of frat and tribe that have the same purpose.
Mind.
Yep, exactly. And so you can't, when you kill one of them, there's just more with the same purpose right behind them. But I thought that analogy was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot as well. That's a great pick because it was also just a great answer. I was like, oh, why do you like this? It was like, they'd be like, oh, like, I don't know, they look cool. It was like, no, this was like the most well thought out answer I've heard in a movie to any question in a very long time. Yeah,
and it blew away her sisters in the sorority. They weren't ready for that too because they thought it was a good answer. They didn't really reveal to her. She had the boyfriend that she dragged around, but they didn't give her a whole lot of personality up to that point. So when she answered that so well, you're just like, oh, all right, I guess you're a thinker.
My sleeper, and this is small, but I just love in the final scene before things go haywire and everyone gets what's coming to them. The main guy, Brian, my pick is that he's chewing gum. And it's just, I don't know who thought that up, but it just adds this air of like, I'm killing people, I'm ruining people's lives. And it's so casual. Like I'm chewing gum. This means less than nothing to me. It's just a throwaway day, whatever. And it was like that tiny little detail just added so much to the scene.
It definitely gives away. That's definitely the type of guy that would be chewing gum during this scene. Exactly. So it just makes it seem like he's got other stuff to do. Tomorrow he's going to forget about this, whatever. Just another day of killing some sorority girls.
Yeah, I don't know who thought that up, but that was brilliant.
Brilliant detail. And this movie does great with attention to detail. My sleeper, I liked the variety between the great and the horrible archery shots. There's some phenomenal shots with the arrow, bow and arrow, that just like puts it right through the boyfriend's eye, and another one that grazed the leg. But then there are other ones where it's so close and he just misses. Like the girl's like slowly getting in, Riley slowly getting in the car, and when they pan out, it's from like any room you're in. It's from where you are to like the closest wall is where the guy is, and it just like buries it into.
You could almost just touch them with the arrow.
Yeah, that time you could just go stab it with the arrow, but instead he just like hit the door, and then I think a stop sign was hit later on. There's some rough shots with the arrow, and also some amazing ones. So there's quite a lot of variance in the shots with the bow and arrow.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there were different arrows. Maybe some were straighter than others. I'm just speculating.
It was like a homemade bow, so maybe there was some difficulty in firing that too.
Yeah. Well, that's a great lead-in to our superlative this week.
Yeah, I doubt either one of us would pick a bow and arrow with this one, but our superlative is our favorite weapon, and there's a lot of choices.
There are so many choices. I mean, I started just keeping a list. I'll run through my list. I don't know if you have others to add, but just to get the list out of the way: an icicle, keys, a knife, a bag, a broomstick, a hatchet, sound, bow and arrow, menorah, paddle, fire, and a bat.
I have two more. I'm going to add one, and then I'm going to pick the other one. So I'm also going to add Christmas lights.
Oh, yep, definitely.
I guess I'll go first then and pick the one that I don't think you said, but one was pretty clear winner, and then I saw this, and I was like, I got to pick this. A sleigh.
Oh,
there was a sleigh that someone was stabbing someone else with like the metal bottom part and then using it as a shield. I think killing someone with a sleigh was the best weapon. Well, my favorite weapon.
That's amazing. It's so perfect for this movie, and that's just.
Wait, sorry, is it a sled?
I don't know the difference between a sleigh and a sled. Is it that like when you're close to Christmas, any sled counts as a sleigh, or does a sleigh have to be?
I don't know either, so I'm going to call it a sleigh.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm on board with that. That's a great pick. I struggled with this one too because it was just there were so many great weapons, and I actually did consider taking the bow and arrow because when the bow and arrow scene came up, I was just like, why are there not more bow and arrows in movies? Because it was so suspenseful. It's not like firing a gun where it's instantaneous. Like you can sort of hear the arrow going through the air, but they're still incredibly deadly. It's like probably more deadly than a bullet because of the mass of the arrow. It's just way more ominous than than a gun or a knife. And they do also sort of use the arrow as a knife in one of the scenes as a weapon. So I was actually leaning towards taking the bow and arrow just because I thought it added so much to the movie. But I have to go with my heart here, and I'm going with the icicle.
Yeah.
The icicle opening scene. And for me, growing up, I read a lot of books that were probably too old for me to be reading, but there was a lot of books about like people getting murdered and sort of horror books and things like that. And I was always thinking about how the icicle is the perfect murder weapon. How is everybody who's going around killing people not using an icicle? Your weapon just melts.
Yeah,
there's no fingerprint.
Disappears.
The whole thing's gone. Like, what could possibly be better than that? I don't understand why anyone kills anybody with anything but an icicle ever. So I have to go with the icicle.
Yeah, I think it's great too because it gives a little weight to like a Christmas Story where like he has the icicle fall down on his face, and now it's like, well, what if we just use that as a weapon to kill people? And plus, he didn't like have it on him. She opens the door and he just reaches up. He's like, all right, this is going to work. And then just uses the convenient icicle to stab her. And like you said, the evidence disappears. It's the perfect weapon. It's super sharp. You can hold it in your hand. You can jab it any which way. And then it just disappears.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that move. That was just a great touch.
I almost picked the menorah because I was dying laughing when I saw her come in with that. And it was just phenomenal.
The menorah was fantastic.
Amazing swings with it.
It was almost like it was a menorah made of lead or something because the sound effects that they added for that fight scene, whenever someone got hit with the menorah, it was just like this amazing thunk sound.
The sound effects in this movie were pretty good. I almost picked it, and I'll just throw it in here. But when they broke Helena's neck, it sounded like there were 50 bones that broke when they did that.
That was
phenomenal neck break
to watch. She was just like, "Ooh, there goes my neck."
Before we get to our one change to be a blockbuster, question for you. Are you ever opening the door, or are you opening the door to someone banging on it, yelling, help, help, let me in? Are you opening the door?
So do I have a peephole or a window? Can I see anything?
There's no peephole, but you have some windows near the door that you can look out and see someone kind of like banging on it.
I think I would in this scenario, but it would depend on like if it's some really helpless looking person that I can probably physically overpower if I needed to, I'd probably let that person in. If the person's bigger than me, or maybe there's a couple people, I probably would not let them in.
Is time a factor? If it's at 2 a.m. versus 2 p.m., does that change anything?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if I'm asleep, I probably wouldn't even notice, first of all. But if I'm asleep, there's almost no way I'm waking up, walking downstairs and letting them in. I'm calling 911 from bed.
Okay, but is that out of convenience, or is it out of you don't want to let what's out there in at 2 a.m.?
It's probably like once I've gotten into bed, it's almost impossible for me to get out of bed for pretty much anything. So
so it could be someone at the door at 2 a.m. being like, "I have $1 million for you." Like, ugh.
I'd be like, leave it on the step. I'll get it in the morning.
Yeah, I'm not opening the door. I don't care what time it is. There's no reason anyone should be at my house saying, help me, let me in. There's other houses nearby, and I'll just call the cops for you, whatever you need. But whatever you have going on isn't coming into my house.
Yeah, this isn't the strangers. You have neighbors that they could chip in here.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not the only guy around. I'm just one man. What can I do? One change be a blockbuster. I have nothing huge here. I think mine is my only change, if there would be one, would be either get to the crazy madness a little sooner, like that last scene when things kind of like break out of the realm of reality and they're having the fight inside
Yep.
the frat house, or maybe not at all, because it does sort of change. I think that some people had some issues with the realisticness of the movie sort of disappears once that happens.
Yep.
It becomes this sort of like magical thing once you find out that like it's just the bust and the blood, and then they have they're all taken over, and then there's this massive fight with everything that we love, the motors in the sled and everything else. So I think for it to do better, I think you would have to do one sooner or not at all.
Yep, I'm in the same vein here, and I think mine was sort of basically if you're going to keep that twist or that third act in there, I wanted some more breadcrumbs along the way so that it wasn't as jarring once you hit that supernatural twist. When you watch it a number of times like we did, you see there were these sort of very subtle clues leading you there, but not everyone's going to be watching this 3 or 4 times. I think you do if you want it to be a blockbuster, which I'm not sure that was the intent of this film, but I think you probably need to have a few more obvious breadcrumbs to get people ready for that final scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you said, I don't think this was meant to be a blockbuster because this was a movie that the director was pretty clearly catering toward, like they wanted the PG-13 rating because they wanted to like this to be sort of like an entry point for girls and women to like start liking horror in a way that doesn't make them out to be the victim all the time. So it's sort of like an entry point for a different class of people that typically don't watch horror movies to sort of like get into it and maybe see themselves in one of the characters. So I don't think when you have that mission, you're going to be a blockbuster.
Right. We talk about this all the time. Like, a movie doesn't have to be a blockbuster. There can be great movies that aren't great to everyone. That doesn't make it any less of a great movie, which is exactly what we have here.
Oftentimes, blockbusters are movies that we and other people like the least.
Right. Right. There's a fair, there can be just that like least common denominator aspect that in a movie like this, you're not trying to please everyone, so you can do whatever the hell you want.
Right, and you might as well because most of the people that you can't please are like already upset with the movie, so you might as well go do whatever you want anyway.
Yep.
Because I just picture so many guys being like that. What is it, Nate? Being like, not all men are like that. Like, don't not all men me.
There was something weird about that guy's mouth too. Like I remember just watching it, I was like, his mouth is enormous.
Yeah,
He's like one of the biggest mouths I've ever seen.
We were saying like he's got like Joker mouth. Like if he ever had to do like another acting gig, like with playing he's got that mouth. It's a massive.
Yep. All right. What do you have for spin-offs?
Spin-off, I have that last scene where the cat is licking up the blood. I think the next movie, maybe she goes back into the same sorority house a year later or whatever, different people. And now it's not the bus, but it's the cat that is providing the power, but it's in a sorority. So maybe the cat bites someone and then somehow it gets transferred over to the rest of the girls in the sorority. And now it's the sorority being sort of like the fraternity guys in this one where their mind is being controlled and they end up attacking all the frat bros on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Except at the end, the frat bros don't band together and, the girls band together.
We'll have to work on the ending, but there's something there for sure.
There where I want to see the girls just attack all the bros.
Yep. And you could tell they were trying to sort of tee something up there with the cat like that. That's there for a reason.
That's there. Like if this movie does do well enough for the Blumhouse group to pay me a bunch of money, maybe we can sneak out a second one here.
Right. Exactly. And I think that my spinoff, it was sort of more of an idea, and I think it can fit right in line with yours. So this is great. Mine is basically kind of follow the same formula. It's a working formula, but do it at Thanksgiving. There's not a whole lot of Thanksgiving horror movies. And I don't think they would be as great as Christmas. The Christmas horror movie is just the perfect genre, I think. But I think a good Thanksgiving horror movie could be great as well.
People leave campus. Part of what I loved about this movie is the empty campus aspect, the idea. Like if you've ever been on your college campus over a break. There was one year I stayed for a month after, like during the summer for extra classes or whatever, and I just lived on campus. And it was like a completely different experience having the whole campus empty. And it's such a cool vibe. So I think during Thanksgiving break, people are gone too.
A lot of people are gone. And I also like the idea of you end up with these sort of random assortments of people that sort of band together because everyone else is left. So you get these collections of people that aren't necessarily friends, and that creates interesting dynamics right there that you can obviously go nuts with in a horror movie.
Yeah, I definitely think we could use some more Thanksgiving horror movies because I think we just said we already are on Christmas horror movies now, and it's before Thanksgiving because there's nothing. I mean, what's Thanksgiving movies are just typically a bunch of people get together and it's a clue situation because everyone's overeating Thanksgiving dinner, and that's usually the basis behind the Thanksgiving horror movies.
Yep.
Did we get to any notes or anything we didn't cover yet before we get to the next movie?
I thought it was a great, just really great exposition by the professor at the end, played by the great Cary Elwes. I hit him too. He was in my list for the draft. I thought he nailed that role.
He gave this movie a lot of credibility by being the professor.
He did. And he nailed that role. It was one of these roles that kind of had to be over the top, but he did it just over the top, the right amount to keep it sort of grounded, but still be, fit in with how this movie was running things. At the end, where he totally explains, okay, now I get what's going on. Thanks for bringing me up to speed, and I love that.
Mansplaining exposition was phenomenal. Yeah, he was a great. I really can't believe we didn't pick him. Yeah, that's a great one. I'd like you ever do the keys in between the fingers move. We saw it twice, one in preparation and one in actual use.
Yep. Always
a good one when you're not feeling safe walking places. I don't like when I forget her name. The friend, I think it was Chris, the one who told Riley, "You of all people should care." I don't like being told I should care about something. That's a big pet peeve of mine. You don't get to be of all things. I need to care. No, I don't.
Yeah, it's like you care about what you want to care about. Don't worry yourself with what I need to care about too. It's none of your business.
I care about me caring about what I care about, and you caring what you care about, and you of all people should care about that. This happens a lot. I liked when Landon was leaving the coffee shop after the sort of awkward interaction, but a good one. So much so that Riley came around the counter to watch him leave, and he opened the door for one person, but then nonstop trickling of people came in, and there's nothing you can do. You just hope there's that one person who you hope there's that one person notices this guy's been holding the door for 6 people. Maybe I'll take over. But if that person doesn't exist, you're just there.
You're stuck because you can't. You're not slamming someone's face.
Right. He went from doing a nice thing to being a jerk to someone, so you can't do that. You just have to wait till the herd comes through. He also had my favorite line, which was one of my favorite parts about making this the PG-13 dialogue. And he just goes, "Suck a fat fart."
Oh, so good. So good. I love that line too. It was just you can't not laugh when that line came out.
Yeah, sucking a fat fart is not used enough.
I'm definitely going to use that after seeing this movie.
Yeah, I'm just going to squeeze it in somewhere and see how it goes.
The other thing I liked, and this would have been a deep, extreme deep sleeper, but I really liked the font in the credits. I thought it was just a great font.
Very, very good. Very Christmassy.
Yeah, some of the letters linked together. The whole thing was great. Make sure you stay through the credits and watch the font.
Yeah, I think we covered everything. What are we doing next time?
We're staying in the Christmas horror genre, milking this for what it's worth, and going with Silent Night, Deadly Night.
And who recommended that we should do this movie?
Yeah, my wife, we're about to fire this one up, and she's like, you got to do Silent Night, Deadly Night. I had just received the board game that just came out today and was shocked to find out that it qualifies for our podcast. I had no idea. I thought this would have been I don't know, I could see it being a 40 critics, 98 audience situation. I was just blown away this qualifies.
It's just been brought up casually so much over the past 30, 40 years that you would think that this movie would have I think this came up the other day where we just found out Children of the Corn is below 50% in both scores. And it's just how can a movie have so many spin-offs and be a part of pop culture and be not nobody liked it when it came out? And it doesn't make any sense. This is kind of like that. I remember this box cover too. It was very scary. I think it was a very bulky one from the 80s, The Shining, big box.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this again, and I'm going to watch it and play the game while watching it, which I'm very excited to play for the first time.
I can't wait to hear an update on both next time we do our podcast. All right, that was a lot of fun, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, later.
Later.